Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well. My name's William, this is iRacing, and today we'll be looking at the Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 Club Sport around Virginia International Raceway, or VIR. This is for the Michelin Pilot Challenge series going on in iRacing, the same as this kind of series I've been doing. So we'll have a hot lap setup and a little bit of a track guide for you as well. All the driving for this was done by my teammate Ashley Finch. Ash is really fast. I really do appreciate him taking the time and throwing this one together. He competed for our team in the SCO event that happened at VIR, and they basically the entire time had the fastest car on track. I kind of took that setup that I had made for that and tweaked it around for MPC. So setup's been proven by them. It's properly quick in my opinion, and I think anyways, it should be a pretty good one for you guys, so I hope it is. Go ahead and get on into the hot lap for you. Once again, shout out to Ash for doing this for me. If you guys see him in a race, shoot him a message, tell him thanks, tell him he's too quick, all that good stuff. And I'll be back with you guys to talk over the track guide. Enjoy. All right, everyone. So we're at the start of the lap here. Once again, this is Ash's driving, not mine. So I'm just going to try and commentate on what I'm seeing, and some of the markers I think would be good references out here on the track. So starting the lap here, start finish, or the front straight, it's got a bit of a curve to it, but it's pretty straight here. So we go down into the first corner, the braking zone. Our initial braking marker is going to be this 4 here on the left, and this is a heavy braking zone. You do not want to overshoot this. Go a little bit too deep, you're way offline. It's a lot of time in turn 1, but also this track, you don't get really any runoff. So if you run too wide, you're going off into the grass, and you're definitely going to lose a ton of time. So this 5, 4, 3, 2, all this good stuff, your braking marker for turn 1 should be around the 4. And you can see here, as he passes the 4, hard onto the brakes, almost maximum braking input, keeping it nice and straight until about the 100, and then he starts turning in here, going for this inside curbing. So the curbs around here, you're going to use them pretty much everywhere, some a little bit more aggressive than others, but he puts his right side wheels all the way up on the curb there. The setup takes it pretty well, in my opinion. So already back on the gas and full throttle, accelerating out, and you can see he didn't go all the way out to the white line or anything, kind of stayed in the middle of the track and is cutting it back in towards a kind of second apex here past that curbing there on the right. So that section, it's really easy. I'll just kind of comment on this real quick. It's really easy to not make this first apex, which really compromises you. You wind up too wide over here to the left, and you just wind up losing a ton of time, not being able to pick the throttle back up and keep the car on a nice tight line to the inside. You're spending too much time on the initial turn-in. So really focus on hitting this first apex nicely, like Ash does here, and then being able to keep the car kind of in the middle of the track and pick the throttle up nice and early. That is what is super important through these first couple corners. So you can see there, not using any of the curb there on the exit, doesn't need to. So this next section, this is pretty difficult. So this corner coming up is flat out, but you can see here he doesn't turn in to like kiss this inside curb at all. He actually avoids it. So he's sacrificing the entry into this corner, so he has a better exit to set him up for the braking. So it's a little bit of a lift, and that's why he's braking basically on the exit of that corner to set up for this next left-hander, not running all the way out to the right and just trailing the brake in, really going to attack this curb. So he goes up on the curb. The second he hits the curb, back on the throttle aggressively. Once again, it kind of settles the car whenever you do that. So we'll kind of watch that back real quick, just so you can kind of get an idea. So it's initially just a little bit of a lift in the throttle, and then braking about 50%, and then trailing immediately as he starts rotating the car in. You can see there's the rotation input, and the braking starts to get trailed. Now it's a little bit of coasting, a little bit of trail braking, aggressively onto that curb and aggressively onto the throttle almost at exactly the same time, and hard onto the throttle all the way out, just touching the right side wheels up on this curb, but staying within the bounds of the track. You don't want to be dropping a wheel off in the grass there. It's just going to kill your corner exit. You might as well play it a little bit safe, and once you kind of get the feel for it, use this curb, but it's not like a must or anything like that. So going into the next corner, this is a pretty heavy braking zone. No really good braking markers for it. Basically, it's about past this tire barrier on the right, but that's way far over there. Realistically, the best marker I've seen is these kind of like lines in the grass, or alternatively, you've got your lines on the road here with the kind of like rubber marks going into it. So we'll just kind of take a look at this. He brakes basically at those lines in the grass, and once again, it's not a very hard braking zone. It's about 50% and then immediately trailing because he's rotating the car in towards this inside curb. Once again, you're going to use these curbs pretty aggressively in some spots and not aggressively in others. This is one of those spots where you're really going to aggressively use it. So you're actually kind of cutting this corner a little bit. And you can see here, he's cutting it, but already back on the throttle, it really does settle that car down. You just have to have the commitment to do it. So full throttle through this part. As he sets up to go back to the right, he's going to have to crack the throttle here a little bit to really get the car rotated the way he wants. Gets up onto the curb, once again, not as aggressively as the last one, and starts applying the power as it's coming back down off of the curb. This section is really easy to mess up, take a little bit too much a curb, or not get the car far enough over, not keep the car far enough to the left off of this curb. So this is super important whenever he attacks this curb here. He does pick the throttle up aggressively, but he kind of waits for a second because the car is still rotating to the left. He's trying to keep the car over here to the left to open up this following right-hander. So you can carry as much speed through these next couple corners as possible, because the S is on this track. It's a lot of corners, but it is basically flat out. So you need all of this exit speed that you can get. So coming out of that corner, just picking the throttle up nice and easily. And coming through this section, there's a little bit of a confidence lift here. So you can see right there, just a lift, just to make sure that the car is going to tuck in nicely and not go too wide. So having driven this a little bit myself, you can take this part flat, but more often than not, you're going to wind up not actually making the apex you want, and then getting an off track here on the left side and running through this sand and invalidating your lap. So that confidence lift there, it's not so much because the car can't handle it, but it's to stay within the bounds of the track. Pretty smart to do there. Just a little lift, and you know you're going to be able to just kind of dance between those curbs and not lose time by sliding on that sand. So all the way through the S's now. Let's see how long of a section this is to just be flat out. So you can see how aggressively we're going over these curbs too. No big problem. We're going to brake a little bit here to set the car up. This is pretty important. So you don't actually need to brake for this. You could take this corner completely flat, but this is to set up the following corner. So watching this carefully, it's just a brake coming off of that last curb, just a little bit to kind of slow the car down and load the nose up as you aim for this inside curb here on the right. This is so that he could keep the car. He's now back on the throttle, but he's going to keep the car over to the right-hand side, because this next corner is really, really fast and tricky. You need to really open the corner up to keep the speed up through it, and also to keep you from going off wide. And this corner right here, you do not want to go wide on. You can see how much of an elevation drop there is there, and basically you just go sliding and sliding and sliding, and it's not a good time. So he brakes for this one again and trails the brake all the way into the curb. Second he touches the curb, once again aggressively back on that power, and then you can see how tight this is here on exit. So you can run up onto this curb, you'll be completely fine. You can even drop some wheels off. It's generally okay. You'll get a off track. But if you go a little bit further, you could just see how this slopes down. You basically just slide for days, and then if you have to cut back across because you're closer over here, you get a black flag. It's really bad. So make sure you take that corner nice, and this is pretty aggressive. This is actually really fast through here. He does a great job. But don't be afraid to take that corner a little ginger, because if you mess up, it really does make you pay. So coming down into the final section, into Oak Tree, all of this is actually, you're going quite fast here out of this corner exit, but your markings do come up pretty nicely. So once again, you got the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then the arrow. We're going to be looking for the 2 coming into the corner. So bringing the car back over to the left, looking for the 2 there, and braking just before it. You can see it is not a heavy braking zone, because we're already going to be rotating the car in into the first part of this corner, and we're basically going to treat this as one long right hand corner. So about 50% brake and then trailing it off, and you can see here this is one of those curbs. He's going to kiss it just barely with the right front, but not smash over it, because you don't want it to throw the car at all over to the left and wind up off in this grass. If you wind up in this grass, you're going to go into those tire barriers. So just trying to get the car all the way out to the, basically you want the car going at its widest point at the start of this curbing here, and he continues just trailing this brake in, trailing the brake in, and still continuing to rotate the car in towards the apex right around the corner. And we're going to jump this curb, pick the throttle up aggressively, kind of lifts, and then plants it as the car comes off the curbing to kind of settle it down again. And it's now full throttle all the way down the straight into what I think is probably the best section for a track the S's on this track are pretty fantastic, but this section coming up is probably my favorite on any track out here. VIR is awesome. Highly recommend it. I know it's not very popular in iRacing, but you guys should get VIR. Let's see, going into this next section. So this is a pretty aggressive braking zone. Once again, you've got these markers. Looking for about the 1 board, it looks like is his marker. Yep, right around the 1, heavy braking, and then start to trail about 50% brake. That's when he rotates the car in. We're gonna clobber this curb here with the left side tires, straighten the car out, continue braking 50%, and then start to trail it again as you rotate the car in. And once again, clobber this curb here with the right side tires, not cutting it, but just running the right sides up on it, and then back on to the gas. As now then it's just a game of keeping the car nice and tight to the left here. Kind of have to lift the throttle a little bit to make sure it'll stay, and then running the car out to the right and setting the car up for this next section. This next section is quite a bit of fun. So we're going to turn in here, still full throttle, turning in, and then lifting and braking a little bit. So jumping this curb, you can see how aggressive that is. Left side tires all the way off into the grass, still on the brakes, trailing it off, and then once again jumping this curb with the right side tires, not quite cutting it though. So you can see this section. We'll just kind of watch this one more time, as this is really difficult to get right. So he doesn't sacrifice or open this corner up at all, which is fine. You're going to stay on the throttle and just lift a little bit to make sure the car's going to not run too wide on the exit, as you don't have any runoff on this track, so you really do need to make sure you stay within the bounds of the curbing and the white lines. Now then, we're going to turn the car in. So you can see here, turning the car in and then braking. Braking really loads that nose up. You can see the rotation that happens in the car at that point. Then just trailing the brake, applying it a little bit more, and then putting the right side tires up onto that curb, not jumping it though. So if he jumped it like he did the curb before, it's going to shoot the car over to the left more. But just resting those right side tires on that curb is giving you a little bit more track to play with, but it's also not going to shoot the car to the left, which you definitely do not want to do because you're not going to necessarily run out of room, but it is going to keep you from picking the throttle up. And this is onto the front stretch. So you can see here, picking the throttle up, he does crack it a little bit to make sure he's going to be okay and make sure he makes the kind of sort of apex right around here, around this white line. But we're full throttle now and running, using not putting too much steering input in or anything, just kind of letting the car run out to the left side of the track. So it runs all the way now to the start finish line. And this is going to be good enough for a 154.593, really fast lap. Massive thanks to Ash. He's definitely got quite a bit of pace around this track, and I really just want to say once again, thank you, Ash, for doing the driving for me. I appreciate it. I hope this helps you all out. We'll go ahead and take a look at the setup now. Okay, so we can go ahead and take a look at the setup now. The setup was made for SCO one-off event at VIR. Like I said, our team participated in it. Ash actually drove in it. That's why he did the driving for me, is because I asked him, because he is really quick. SCO's a pretty top-level league. It was a one-off event that they put on. Some really good competition in it. And at times with their driving and everything, we actually had the fastest car on the track, even with a little bit of damage. So it basically just took that setup, and with a little bit of feedback from Ash as well, improved the drivability of it and altered it for a little bit of a sprint setup. And really all that means is taking the fuel out and resetting the ride heights. So you guys are getting, in my opinion, a pretty darn good setup here. I hope you all like it. Tire pressures are still going to be on the lowest. That's the way it is in iRacing. Let's see, I'm not really going to go into too much detail here on anything. I am just going to point out it's 11.4 gallons or 43 liters. If you don't know your fuel number, don't be afraid to add a little bit more, because actually we were running the nose at the lowest you could possibly get, which is 101 millimeters. But because we had to take fuel out to get the right amount for the sprint race, the nose is actually a little bit higher. So if you need to add fuel, you definitely can, and your you don't need to change anything. You should be able to add 1, 2, 3, 4 clicks, whatever, if you're not sure of your fuel number, and make sure that you'll have a safe amount of fuel so you're not running out at the end of the race. Other than that, I do just want to point out that the wing angle on the rear, so you're on one wing around here. The car is ultimately faster in some sectors of the track with more wing, but racing against the BMWs, especially with the experience that they had in SCO, they did that race on one wing. Car was completely drivable and worked well for them all the way throughout, and it was the best way to kind of counter the fact that the BMW is really fast in a straight line. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you do want to increase the wing angle, you definitely can. You're just going to need to understand that the car is then going to understeer in some of the high-speed corners around this track. It'll be faster in some of the medium-speed corners just from the extra downforce for sure, but you're going to have to kind of adjust how you take some of the high-speed corners with that downforce on the car. So keep that in mind. But there it is anyways for you guys. Kind of leave it up there for a second. Just once again, I want to say big thanks to Ash for doing the driving. He did say he was going to do some races this week, so you might spot him out there if you guys are racing as well. And like I said, send him a message if you do. Ashley Finch, you should be able to recognize the Pure Sims livery on the car as well. Send him a message if you did use this, if it helped you out. Let him know. Thanks for doing the driving and putting in a solid lap time, and the feedback for the setup he gave me as well. It was fantastic. So thanks again, Ash. I hope this helps you guys, and I hope you do enjoy it. So best of luck if you're racing this week, as always. And if you like this, want to see more iRacing stuff, more setups, guys, definitely do like the video, subscribe. Kind of getting to a point where I want to see if this is actually worth continuing into future seasons or expanding or whatever. So definitely let me know. I appreciate it as always. Best of luck, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.